prank on a comedian. That's me. Stay safe out there, folks. I'm just kidding. It's not March of 2020. Though the NASDAQ seems to think it is. People are always asking me. They say, why do you try to do comedy? Emphasis on try. On economics, a topic that's inherently not funny. First of all, I disagree. Comedy stems from relatability. And I don't mean to project, but Big Brother has violated me without consent in ways that Asa Akira can't even imagine. So I guess it's up to you to decide whether or not we have common ground. So I have a niece. She's turning 2 in a couple of days, and I want to be a good uncle. So I went down to the general store. I'm going to buy her some balloons. 2-year-olds love balloons, right? You normally walk into the store and they have whatever the display balloons, I guess. I didn't see any. So I go up to the cashier. I don't know, maybe they don't blow them up until after you purchase them, so you can get maximum helium or something like that. I said, hey, can I get balloons? I'll buy like 5 of them. I don't know. And she said, actually, we can't do that right now. That's weird. Are you out of balloons? We're out of helium, actually. I've never heard of that before. So I asked her, I said, by any chance, I know people that work in retail hate this question, but do you know when you're going to get more helium in? You know, I don't need the balloons today. I got a couple of days that I can still get them, so I can come back the next day, the day after, or I don't know if I just need to go to a different store. And she says, I think you're misunderstanding. Everywhere is out of helium. So it turns out the Fed has confiscated all the helium because they needed it to inflate the economy. They call it a free market. But whoever said that didn't know they could print money. So I'm a prop comic now. I haven't told anyone this. But it turns out if you can find a way to fit something into your comedy set, you can write it off on your taxes. I can write off each individual ingredient in this sandwich, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but it's really the only thing I can do to try and make it affordable. There's a lot of apps now that are gamifying the stock market. More people are trading now than ever before in history because it's so easy and it's so accessible. Now, I don't know if you've ever played these apps before, but if you haven't, I'll save you the trouble. It is easily the most expensive game I've ever played, and all you do is sit there and watch a number go down. So I grew up in a small farm town. Farmland as far as the eye can see. You watch as the seasons go by, there's wheat and corn. They start as seeds and they grow to be taller than me. And as soon as they hit that height, the farmers pull out all of this machinery. I don't know the name of half of it. But the coolest one is the baler. Now, if you don't know what that is, it essentially takes all of the junk that nobody cares about, crushes it into a ball, and spits it out. And that's how you get these giant cylinders of hay. It's not a bale of hay like you can pitch with a fork, but they're huge. Now, when you see something this big when you're a kid, you climb it. Super fun to climb it. Also super fun to make fun of the people that can't climb it. You're the king of the world and they can't touch you. Now, a couple weeks ago, I was going for a walk. It wasn't a very long one. It was about half a mile in one direction, half a mile on a different route back. But I walked past about 7 different farms owned by 7 different farmers. And on my way back, I notice there's one farmer still out. He's on his tractor. He's riding down the side of the farm. So I kind of wave to him and I beckon him towards me and we start talking. Now I know him. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone. So we're just chatting for a little while. And I ask him, I said, hey, when I was on my walk, I noticed something. And I noticed it with your farm too. As I was walking by, there's not a single bailout. Why is that? And he looks at me and he says, swear to God, the government's keeping those for the banks. This is a different sandwich. So I can write 2 sandwiches off on my taxes. One unintended perk of being a prop comic, I also get to eat lunch. So there's a thing that people are doing these days. It's called quiet quitting. Now I'm sure most people have heard about it at this point, but everyone is quiet quitting instead of actually quitting. If for some reason you don't know what quiet quitting is, it's essentially when you want to be brave. You want to stand up for what's right. You want to demand change. But you don't have the balls to do anything. Hey, millennials, no one's going to hear you if you're whispering. Suddenly Marxism isn't looking so bad, huh? Supply and demand is a term that I'm sure everyone knows. It's probably the most famous example of an inverse relationship. Supply goes up, demand goes down. Demand goes up, supply goes down. But that's not going to stop the price of your house from plummeting. I'm sure when you bought it, you're so happy. You're finally independent. You don't owe a landlord money. You can prove that you're worth something, and you feel like you're worth something. Well, I'd be willing to bet that in the last week, all of that appreciation is gone. Who here owns a house by show of hands? 1, 2, 3. A lot of you. There's a decent amount of hands. All right, now by show of hands, how many of you actually own your house? I'm seeing less hands. I wonder if that means anything. The way the system is set up, we're in debt for most of our lives. All of us have taken out a loan at some point to go to school, to buy a car, to buy a house, to start a business, this or that. We've all taken a loan out for one reason or another. And it was designed this way so I don't like using the P word. So I'm going to say, so the non-rich stay poor their entire life. There's a term when you're in debt. This is a real term. It's called being a financial slave. That's right. But there's one thing that we don't really ever think about. A lot of us are financial slaves to the United States. We owe the government money in one way or another. But the United States is also in debt. Isn't that weird? So we are the slaves of the slaves. We're the assistant of the assistant. How lame is that? We're the kid that's being bullied by the kid that just got his lunch money stolen. So the other day, I was getting some gas. Well, I was on my way to the gas station. And I'm a safe driver, eyes glued to the road. But in this one instance, I couldn't help but rubberneck up at that giant glowing sign with all the prices on it. A gallon of gas, $3.74. Now, I know, in some places gas is way more expensive. In some places gas is cheaper. But where I live, that's expensive, okay? So as I'm rubbernecking at this sign, I accidentally drive past the entrance into the gas station. There's no real good place to turn around in here, so I decided to just drive around the block and then I'll just come back around and pull into the gas station. So I drive around. This is a true story, by the way. I drive around, and as I'm pulling into the gas station, I kind of glance at the sign again. $3.84. It went up 10 cents in the time it took me to drive around the block. Isn't that crazy? Nobody's talking about the fact that a gallon of gas costs the same price as a gallon of milk. The only difference at this point is a gallon of milk will last me longer than 20 minutes. This is a third sandwich. Historically, the United States economy is at its best during war times. Does the war on drugs not mean anything to you people? Speaking of history, Andrew Jackson, the 7th president of the United States, is the only president to successfully pay off the entirety of the United States debt. It was so important to him to pay off this debt. Paying off this debt was more important than running the country. I'd say it was totally worth it. Do you remember 10 years ago when half the country was rallying together to get the national minimum wage raised to $15 an hour? Do you remember 2 months ago when half the country was rallying together to get the national minimum wage raised to $15 an hour? Is anybody going to tell them that it's worth less now? All right, that's going to do it for me. I would do a longer set, but just based off the speed of inflation, the more time I spend out here, the less money I have. So I'm going to go before I completely run out of cash. Don't forget to check out my stand-up comedy special, Buy Low, Sell Lower, coming to Netflix when they raise the price. See ya.